Hey everyone, Jim Zimmer here. I want to talk to you about the project we're doing for Ronald McDonald House. We've already been doing Angels of Hope and Comfort Birds. Now we want to add some Comfort Creature Turtles. Carol has already put the instructions for it in our bin at Klingspor's, and you can go over there and pick them up and carve them. Leave them there in the box when you're done. Now she's going to show us how to actually carve these turtles. Now Carol, you've already put a couple of these turtles, and I call them Comfort Creature Turtles, over in the bin at Klingspor's with instructions. But I'd like to have you show us how you've created this. You told me that it's fairly easy, so explain to us what you've done here.
Okay. The little kits that are in the box at Klingspor's include a wooden hen egg that has a flat bottom, and the instructions from this article in Wood Carving Illustrated on Comfort Turtles. It's a pretty detailed article, and it's pretty easy to follow.
Now these are kits already in the bin at Klingspor?
Yes,
okay.
And there's probably a dozen there. If you take one, you just need to write that you've taken one, put your name down, and if you take number 11, then you need to please call me so I can refresh our supply. The kits include this egg, which is what you're going to be working on. These are nice because you don't have to have a bandsaw to carve these, so it's good for our folks, especially the newer people who don't have access to a bandsaw. The article includes detailed instructions as well as these templates for marking the egg so that you can get your bearings when you start to do the carving. I transferred my templates to some plastic. I just took this as it's one of those plastic dividers from a notebook, and made these since I was making quite a few of the turtles. Now, what you'll want to do first is mark your center line on your egg, and I'm not very good at doing this, so I'll just kind of mark it all the way around. The best way is to keep the grain as I've shown it here.
So your line is running with the grain around there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you mark your center line, decide which is going to be your top and bottom, and then you take the first template, which is the bottom of the turtle. This you put on the bottom of the egg and draw around it with your pencil to make a nice little circle. And after you've done that, you'll do the first step of carving, which is to remove the egg within that circle so you have a flat bottom on your turtle.
Did you remove that with a knife or a sander?
Yeah, a knife is fine. You can do all of this with just usually a rough out knife. You might want to use a detail knife on part of it. Once you've got that flattened area, then you'll use the next template, which is this one. It's the shell, and it's going to show you how much of the shell of this egg you need to cut off. I'll show you how that is. You put it, after you've cut your bottom there, you put the shell on like that, and then you mark around that area. You'll see how it goes like this all the way around. And then the next step is to take this little circle, which helps you define where the turtle's head is. You put that on, mark it in a circle as well. And then one other thing that you don't have a template for is to make the bottom of the turtle's shell, which is right here. You need to mark that so you don't accidentally carve it off when you're going. But it's about 1/4 of an inch all the way around the front bottom from the area of your shell line on each side. Now, once you've got that done, one other thing you might want to do before you get too far ahead is take your knife and round off this back area. You don't have to make it perfectly round, just sort of get rid of the flat surface. And once we're done, you can take some sandpaper and smooth that out a little more so it looks nice and matches the rest of the smooth shell. So once you've got these all marked, you've smoothed out the back, you've defined your your bottom of the shell, you'll start carving. And what you'll want to do is take out this excess area. Now, one other little tidbit that I didn't mark because it's just too hard to do is to decide how much of of this circled area that you're going to preserve is going to be the turtle's head. There's a little template that shows you about the size of the head in lateral and top views, so you can mark it as well. So what? And
this template is in this instruction booklet here?
Mm-hmm. All of it is. So I'll show you from the side. I've already partially carved this, but you want to come over and kind of make a square out of it. And I just matched it up with the template to get an eyeball size. It doesn't have to be exact. And there's one other little thing that you might want to think about before you get too far. Once you've carved a little bit of this excess out, go ahead and mark where the foot of the turtle is. You'll notice that it sort of sticks out straight. It's kind of a simple turtle. Just go ahead and mark it so you know not to cut it all out. And this is what it looks like when you've done that. Taking off this from the top all the way back to the shell edge and leaving your little foot in there all the way underneath his head. So then you've got sort of a block-headed turtle at this point. The one thing that you will want a gouge for, a V-gouge is the best one probably, is to mark the edge along here. It gives it a little bit of a ridge to follow, and then you'll use it to make this edge of the shell again. So good to have one. You can do it without a gouge though, very easily. You can vary this just about any way you want, and it turns out fine. So that's what happens when you finish up here. Now, from there, once you've got all this looking like we have it here, you'll need to carve the turtle's head. That's a good place to use this template, kind of to get a rough idea. Mine never seemed to turn out exactly like the template anyway, but you can make your turtle smiley or serious, whatever. You'll round off the top, round off the bottom, cut in a little mouth with just a stop cut, and then trim it up underneath. And I drew in the eyes with a pencil. It's a little hard to get in there with a knife to cut around the eyes, so what I've done in mine is use a wood burner. So once I got all this excess wood cleared out, carved the little head, tidied up his little feet, I got the wood burner out. You could do this with a small veiner tool as well. In fact, the first one I did, I used a veiner first, but if you want to wood burn it, that works well too. So you can see where I've burned the pattern on the back, which is also illustrated in the article. It gives you an idea, kind of a rough idea, and you can vary it however you want. You have to extend a little more than what you see on that circle up there to cover the sides, and then draw some little scallopy plates along the edge as well. I wood burned the eye with a nice sharp skew so that I could see it really well when I'm ready to paint. And I put a couple of little nostrils in as well. Once you get this done, you've got your pattern on there, whether you want to do it with a veiner or a wood burner. Then you'll want to paint this. You'll notice that they have a couple of different ways to do it. There's a complicated way in the article which gives you this sort of modeled pattern on the turtles. I didn't have an airbrush tool, so I used a sponge to paint it instead. First you want to paint it yellow because that's going to be the color that just peeks through a little bit. I used the school bus yellow, which was pretty good. And then you'll want to use a green. It's better to use a lighter and brighter green first because we're going to use some darker green for highlights. So the green goes on like this. I'll shake a little bit. Pour it out in a little container. And I used it full strength because you want it to really cover the yellow. So just take a little piece of a household sponge, doesn't take much of a piece, and dab it along here, and just keep brushing until you've got most of it covered up, leaving just a little bit of the yellow popping through, not a lot, like so. And then, if you want to add some highlights, I kind of put the highlights like in the centers of the plates to make it a little prettier. And it will look prettier after it dries and after you finish it. But I put some darker highlights kind of in the centers of the plates like so. But that's kind of how you get started on it. Just leave a little bit of yellow peeping through it. Once it's dried, you notice it's a little bit hard to see the lines of the plates at this point. If you let it dry really, really well, you can take a Sharpie. I use just like the ultra fine one like this, and you can go over the plates with that really carefully over top of your paint. And that's what I did with this case as well, because the paint tends to obscure the burn lines. But the burn lines are indented so you can tell where they are pretty easily. So if you just go over it with this, let it dry really well, and then use a spray lacquer on it. That really works. Now as far as the eye, you can kind of do it as you want. I used a little ring of, or a little bigger dot of the school bus yellow, and then a little black dot in the center, and then a little tiny white dot for the top. I also used the Sharpie to outline the edge of the eye, which I had burned with the burner as well, just to make it a little more visible, as well as the nostrils and the underneath his mouth for his smile.
Carol, how did you get the color and paint into these places here?
You just squish your sponge down into it. You can actually cut, if you want a smaller sponge, you can cut a smaller sponge and just dab it in there a little bit. If you're having trouble getting it in, you can also use a brush and dry brush it in into the nooks and crannies. But it kind of looked good, I thought, to leave a little more of the yellow in these little places that are nooks and crannies, so you can see the turtle a little bit better.
And how long does it take then for each coating to dry?
Probably for the paint,
yes,
5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe.
And I guess of course it would depend on what kind of paint you're using.
Exactly, yes. This is acrylic, so it dries really quickly, so I'd say 5 minutes. Now, before I put the finish on, I let it dry like an hour maybe, just to make sure it's good and dry. And you can, if you want to take a brush and, you know, dab a little extra here and there, you can always do that. And you can use whatever colors you want. So they're pretty easy to do. It takes maybe about an hour to do the carving part, and the marking takes almost as long as the carving part, but it takes about an hour.
This is a comfort creature. The idea is for a child to be able to play with it, but also to hold it in his or her hand and actually draw comfort, almost like this is a friend. And I think that's got a wonderful sense of ownership, and the Ronald McDonald House leaders then will give these to the children. Carol, I think that's beautiful. I'm very excited.